Good morning, grade 6. This is the Joel. Once again, going to review the lesson. Today we are going to learn about the last of the 4 river valley civilization. We started with Mesopotamia civilization. Then from Mesopotamia, we started on the river Tigris and river Euphrates. From there, we went to Egypt, where the Egyptian civilization started on the banks of the river Nile. And then we came to India on the Indus Valley civilization, the Harappan civilization. Today we are going to study about China, the civilization that started on the Wango River Valley. The lesson for today is chapter 11, lesson 1, the landscape of China. What do we mean by the word landscape? When you talk about landscape, what comes to your mind? The word landscape, when you think of the landscape, remember we're talking about the physical feature of a country. So we're going to talk about the physical features of China. The objective of these lessons are explain the role of rivers in the development of early Chinese culture. Sorry, 1 minute. And to describe of geographic features help shape life in ancient China. A quick summary of this lesson. The geography of ancient China shaped the way the civilization and the culture developed. So we are going to understand how the geography of China shaped the civilization and culture. So here we connect the geography and the shaping of the civilization of ancient China. The next point, China's rivers helped shape its early farming civilization. Again, another part of the landscape, the rivers helped in the early farming civilization. Then you have the large land was isolated from much of the rest of the world by its physical features, such as dry deserts to the north and west, the Pacific Ocean to the east, and the impassable mountains to the south. You see a small. As a result, the Chinese developed a common heritage, and because of this natural barrier around China, the Chinese developed a common heritage. Why? Because the Chinese they believed that they were the only civilization that was at that in those times. They did not know about the other civilization because of this natural barrier. Let us see this map of China, which can clearly indicate. You see in the northern part of China, you can see the desert region. The eastern part, you can see the coastline, and in the northwest, you can see the mountains. A clearer picture, a clearer map of this of the physical features of China. Gobi Desert in the north, the Taklamakan Desert towards the northwest, then the mountains, then you have the Tibet Plateau, you have Mount Everest, which also comes within China. That is all like is a common, these mountain ranges are really common for India, Nepal, okay, India and Nepal and China. And here is a beautiful picture, a scenic beauty of China. This is a picture of the Great Wall of China, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. These are some of the places which looks like this. Then you have the rivers flowing. And if I'm not mistaken, this is a Wango River, which is yellowish in color. Again, another picture of the river with a city at the side. And this is another slide showing you the different deserts, the plains, the dry plains, the deserts, and the river regions. Okay, let's go to the vocabulary and meaning. The first word that we're going to learn is loess. What is loess? Loess is a deposit of yellow silt. It is a wind-blown silt. Okay, loess is a thick deposit of wind-blown, fine-grained sediment. Very fine sediments most came from the last ice age and are blown large distances, making great soil for crops. Now this blows from the it blows with the wind, and it most of the loess are settled in China, to the extent that they also got the lowest plateau over there. So much of the sediments are settled and have formed landforms in China. The next word you have is the steppes. What is the steppes? Steppes are the dry, treeless grasslands found in the further north of China. So right in the further part of China, there are treeless grasslands. What is grassland? Grasslands are those large areas of land which is covered with grass. But no trees, only grass. Over here, you can see, okay, there are scattered. I can see a tree over there, yeah. But what I'm trying to say, they're not like full of trees. The next word is terrace farming. What is terrace farming? Terrace farming is growing crops in terraces dug into the slopes of hills or mountains. Oh wow, this is the picture. You can see a beautiful picture how when the farming is going on and when the crops are grown. Now here it looks very narrow, but see how broad they actually are. And this is a very picturesque site. And apart from in China, there are many places in the world that you can see this terrace farming, terraces, especially like in northern part of India. And as you know, your teacher, Miss Madhu, she's from North India. And from her, from the place that she stays, there's a hill station called Masuri. Over there, you can see this terrace farming, which is so beautiful. The next word we go is to dialect. What do we mean by dialect? Dialect is a way of speaking. Okay, the official dialects of China is Mandarin, the official language. Like how you have Arabic is your official language, right? Apart from 70% of the population speaks Mandarin, but there are also other major dialects, the major languages spoken in China. You also have Cantonese, Hunanese, okay, Min dialect, the Gan dialect, Wu dialect, Kishia or Hakka dialect, but mainly is a Cantonese or Mandarin that is spoken in China. These are the letters of the alphabet, which really this is Chinese. You cannot understand, but everyone understands their own language. Like you understand Arabic, I understand English and the regional language of my countries. Here you see is the heritage. What is the heritage? When you talk about Chinese, you always think of all this judo and not judo, this wrestling, not wrestling. This is like, yeah, this is judo. The activities, so all this has stemmed from the Chinese culture. And today also we use these types of exercise for helping us to as self-defense. Okay, so this comes from the Chinese culture. What is heritage? Heritage is a set of ideas that have been passed down from one generation to another. Here you have, they have the during the Chinese New Year, they have the dragon dance and they have the dragon parade. Okay, okay. Let us understand about the mighty rivers of China. China's rivers help shape the early civilization that developed there. This is especially true of the Wangho in the north and the Changjiang in the south. These major rivers were a great source of fresh water, food, fertile soil, and transportation. They also were the subjects of Chinese poetry, art, literature, and folklore. So, the two main rivers of China where the Chinese civilization flourished were the Wango River and the Shangjiang River. Okay, the Shangjiang River is also called as the Yangtze River today. Now, these rivers are so important that people in literature use use them in the poem, use them in their draw. People would use them. The artists would use these rivers as their topics of drawing. In literature, folklore, there would be stories all around these two important rivers. The Yellow River or the Wango River. The Yellow River is often called the cradle of Chinese civilization. What do we mean by cradle of Chinese civilization? It means that It is like the cradle is very, very small babies growing from there. So it was along the banks of the Yellow River where the Chinese civilization first formed. The Yellow River is 3,395 miles long, making it the sixth longest river in the world. It is also called the Wanghe River. The early Chinese farmers built small villages along the Yellow River. The yellow colored soil was so good for growing a grain called millet, like how we have food grains, right? Like barley, there's another food grain called millet. And this soil, which is on the banks of the river Wango, was very good for the growing of millet. The farmers of this area also raised sheep and cattle. Here is a picture of the Wango River. The Wango River is also called the Yellow River because of, as I told you, because of the lowest sediment that has flown, it has collected over the years. This has not happened in 1 or 2 years. It's taken many, many years. And over the years, the color of the river has turned into yellow. The water has turned into yellow is because of the lowest sediment inside. The next important river we go is to Changjiang or the Yangtze River. Yangtze Changjiang means a long river. The Yangtze River is the south of the Yellow River, flows in the same direction from the west to the east. It is 3,988 miles long and the third longest river in the world. Just like the Yellow River, the Yangtze River played an important role in the development of the culture and civilization of ancient China. So as I told you right in the beginning, these two rivers, the Yangtze River, the Changjiang River, same, and the Yellow River or the Wango River are, are the most important rivers of ancient China because their development of the culture and civilization started from these two rivers. Farmers that lived along the Yangtze River took advantage of the warm climate and rainy weather to grow rice. So probably the climate that is required for the growth for rice is warm climate and a rainy weather. So this climate was experienced along the Yangtze River, and the farmers took this opportunity to grow rice on a large scale. Eventually, the land along the Yangtze River became some of the most important and wealthy land in all of ancient China. So, because of that, this land became so fertile, so rich soil, so good soil that it became a very rich land, and they could grow variety of crops in this land in ancient China. The Yangtze also served as a boundary between northern and southern China. So it was like a boundary separating northern China to southern China. It is very wide and difficult to cross. The famous Battle of Red Cliffs took place along the river. So here they say that this Yangtze River looks, you see the river, the pictures, and this is narrow. But actually it is very, very wide and is very difficult to cross, probably because of the force of the water. You do not know how deep the river is. When we see a river, we do not know how deep is a river. So it may look shallow, but it can be very deep. Here is a picture of the longest river in Asia, the Yangtze River or the long river in known as Changjiang. Okay. Now here you can see a picture of again showing you a map showing you the outer China and inner China. So the inner China is mainly the areas which are close to the river. The outer China are mainly the mountain, the Tibetan plateau region, the Taklamakan desert, the Gobi desert, the northern plains, eastern plain. These are, as I told you earlier, the steppes, okay, the dry grasslands, right? The dry areas further in the north. Now, mountains, plateau, desert, and plains. To understand the landscape of China, Imagine stairs with three steps. You can see a picture, you know the stairs, right? One, two, three. As one moves from west to east, each step becomes lower. So as you're moving from west to east, you can feel the difference, right? So from the west, as I told you, top west you have, in western China, you have the Himalayan mountains. North of the Himalaya is the world's largest plateau called the Plateau of Tibet. It's beautiful. It's a very beautiful place. See this picture, so beautiful. Okay, this is a Tibetan plateau, you can see. Okay, here you have Nepal, here you have Bhutan. And this is a Tibet plateau, which is not exactly a part of China, but over the years, due to political reasons, there are certain uh, control of China in this area. So here you have the Tibetan plateau. And this is a view of the Tibetan plateau in reality. Interesting information about Tibet. Let me go into a little extra detail, explanation, extra information for you to understand about Tibet. Tibet is often called the roof of the world. Tibet is located on the Tibetan Plateau, which is the highest region on earth. Tibetan Plateau spanning about 2.5 million kilometers and over a quarter of China's territory. So over a quarter of China's territory comes into that area. Tibet is the highest region on earth with an average elevation of 5,000 meters. That means it is around 16,000 feet high. The highest elevation in Tibet is Mount Everest, Earth's highest mountain, rising 8,848 meters, that is around 29,020, okay, 29,000 feet above sea level. And it is, children, it is amazing. It is beautiful. People from all over the world come to Tibet, come to the northern part of India, come to over here to Nepal. They come to experience this beautiful Mount Everest. And many people try their best to climb the peak, but it's not as easy as it looks. Okay, so this is some beautiful pictures of Tibet that is really experienced. This is one of my dreams to go to this place. It's really, really beautiful, children. And this is exactly the color that it is in reality. The mountains. Let's go to the mountains. To the south and southeast of China are the Himalayan mountains. These are the highest mountains in the world. They provide a nearly impossible border for ancient China, keeping the area isolated from many other civilizations. So the Himalayan mountains, which are to the south, that is between India, Nepal, China, you all experience the northern part. We experience the Himalayan mountain ranges. There are many, many mountain ranges. And these Himalayan mountain ranges are so high that they block China from the rest of the place. And to cross over these mountains, we're talking not now about few years, we're talking about thousands of years ago, okay, in the BCs when the civilization existed. So for them, they had no idea how they could cross over to these places. For them, it was just like a huge wall in front of them. And we're talking about thousands of years ago, the temperature, the climate of those areas were really very, very cold at that time. So these places were always covered with ice. They were also important to Chinese religion and were considered sacred. And at the same time, the Chinese looked at the Himalayan mountain as a sacred mountain. Here is a picture of the beautiful Himalayan mountain ranges. It's really, really beautiful. Next, we go to the desert. To the north and west of ancient China were two of the world's largest deserts, the Gobi Desert and the Taklamakan Desert. I know you will be smiling when you hear the name Taklamakan, but these are the name of the two deserts. These deserts also provided borders that kept the Chinese isolated from the rest of the world. So now these deserts were which part of China? They were to the north and the western part. So again, there was another block for China to the north and western. Now to the north of China, you have Mongolia, right? So Mongolia was another like an enemy, like a threat to China. And that is the reason why the Great Wall was built by one of the Chinese rulers at that time to protect themselves from the invasion of Mongolia. These deserts also provided a border that kept the Chinese isolated from the rest of the world. The Mongols, however, lived in the Gobi Desert and were constantly raiding cities of northern China. This is why the Great Wall of China was built to protect the Chinese from these northern invaders. The northwestern desert. This area of land was difficult to cross. It also an important, it also was a difficult place to live because of the extreme temperatures and other factors. We all know that desert regions are very difficult because they are extreme temperatures. During the day, it is very hot. During the night, it is very cold. For example, oases were the only places to grow crops or raise animals such as sheep. So in the Gobi Desert, there is an oasis. You know what oasis? Oases are green lands in the desert where there's such a certain part of the desert there is just green land that is growing, and in these oases people live and they have their small farms and they keep animals, they raise animals over there. If people did decide to settle in the desert, they would often build shelters made of mud near these oases. Why would they make houses made of mud? Yes, they would make houses made of mud because mud would keep them cool during the heat. Let's look at the two deserts in this area known as the Taklamakan Desert and the Gobi Desert. Here's a Taklamakan Desert and here is a Gobi Desert. You can see this is a desert, a small oasis, a fresh, you can see this sea water over here. So this is what you mean by an oasis. The Taklamakan Desert. At 105,000 square miles, this desert this is an extra information. It's considered one of the most dangerous desert in the world. The name itself means once you go in, you will not come out. Not scary? Think again. Why it is said that it is once you go and not come out, because the sand dunes shift and change, making this place deadly. You know what a sand dune, right? So these sand dunes are very high. And if you're on the sand dunes, suddenly they change direction and it can be difficult. You'll be caught unawares. So this is why they say it is a scary. Once you go in, you will not come out. Plus, these storms can come quickly. The sandstorms can come quickly. Two armies and 300 cities are buried by this desert. So there is a proof that this desert means once you go in, you will not come out, because two armies is not over 10, hundreds of people, and 300 cities are buried by this desert. According to legend, sitting beneath the sand dunes 600 feet below the surface. So according to the legends, according to the stories said by the folklore of the people, they say around 600 feet below the surface of the Taklamakan Desert, you'll find the cities that were buried. If you did decide to go into this desert, you wouldn't find too much vegetation because it is too dry. However, near oases and rivers, you may find bushes, weeds, and trees. So here you won't find much vegetation, but near the oasis, you will find bushes, weeds, and trees. No, the weeds are unwanted plants which are not good for just growing widely in the open. The Gobi Desert. This desert stretches over 500,000 miles. Wow. In fact, this is actually one of the world's largest deserts. The Gobi Desert has few sand dunes. This is a sand dune and you are aware of it. And it's mostly stony. Vegetation is sparse, means less, And the surface of the land has bits of sand and pebbles. So a lot of pebbles and the thing is not only pure sand. If you went to the Gobi Desert, you would see small and wide-leaved space plants. Plants like cactus plants that grow in the desert. Next we go is to the plains. Now look at the beautiful pictures of the plains. You can see one with different colors, one with near the countryside, and the white plains. Okay, the North China Plain, flat region covered with silt carried from the Gobi Desert. Silt runs into the river called Yellow River. And what is the silt called? It's called Loess. Yellow River, the Wango River, the longest and the muddiest river. Silt fertilizes the land, is good for growing crops. Also causes major flooding. At the same time, so you can see here the yellowish color. So at the same time, this river also causes floods. The northeastern plains, you have low hill plains, natural vegetation. Rivers allow for easier travel. The varying climate varies over here, generally too cold and dry for good crops, linked to the rest of China by the coastal plains. Next, we have the Shangjiang Basin or the Yangtze River. Now, here the Yangtze River is a cold, wet coastal plain along the Shangjiang River, which means a long river, longer than the Yellow River. Tributary streams that people use to move goods. So they use the tributaries of the stream, the branches of the river, as a mode of transportation, as a waterway. So they can move people or they can move goods from place to place. This is less dangerous flooding. It does not flood as the Wango River. Thick vegetation, not a lot of farmland, and could grow rice. So the only possibility in this area, in the Yangtze River basin, you can grow rice. A world apart. Now, here, as I told you earlier, that China was a world apart. It was isolated. Let us read. This is some trivia, extra information. And here it is. The ancient Chinese believed China was the center of the earth and the source of a civilization. The early Chinese were so isolated that they came to believe that China was the world's only civilization. They called the world Tianxia, means all under the heaven. They believed that China was the center of all under heaven. Many geographic features also separated the people living within ancient China. Rivers, deserts, mountains, and great distances made the governing of large areas of China difficult. In time, the people of China came to share a common heritage or set of ideas passed down from one generation to another. The ancient Chinese called their land the Middle Kingdom because they felt that they were in the center of the world. Last, we come to the summary of this lesson. China's land and rivers supported the development of early Chinese civilization. Geographic features or physical features separated the ancient Chinese from one another and from other cultures. In time, the people of China came to share a heritage rich in legend. We come to the end of the lesson, the landscape of China. If you have any doubt, please do message me and I will explain it to you. Thank you. Have a safe and a happy summer vacation ahead.